Welcome to Free to Be You. I'm your host, Mary David, and we're here to highlight people who've been through trying circumstances, but use those experiences to impact their communities in a positive way. Our guests for today are Sarah Hillware and Jessica Lee. Sarah is the founder and director of Girls Health Ed, and Jessica is the executive director of the Domestic Violence Resource Project. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jessica.
Thank you for having me here.
So tell me, how did you get involved working on gender-based violence issues?
Growing up as girls, we are taught to be a certain way. We are taught to do certain things. We're supposed to like the color pink. We're supposed to act certain ways in relationships. And growing up, I always challenged it. I always wondered why I was being told these things by my parents, by my extended family members, by society, and I never really understood it. And so then when I went off to college during freshman year, again, the university was telling us how we should be as women on campus. And one of the things that they were telling us is, well, this is how you are not supposed to get raped, as though, you know, teaching us how not to get raped is actually going to prevent rape from happening. But again, they were doing this, you know, out of the goodness of the university's hearts. They wanted to make sure that we were safe as women on campus. However, one night when I was walking back to my room in the dorms, we had a group of boys who were drinking in the hallway, and some of them tried to grab me and pull me into a room. Nothing really happened that night in terms of being assaulted or being pulled into the room, but I was able to get away because they were so drunk that they kind of fell over, tripped over on their own 2 feet. But that experience really made me think about like what our role is as women and how we want to be treated. And so since then I started working on volunteering with the Rape Crisis Center on university and raising awareness about sexual assault on campus.
That's huge. I mean, to take an experience that's so traumatic and really use that to make a difference and help other people in your situation. What did you find when you worked in that setting? I mean, was your experience common?
Yes, actually it was. When I started volunteering at the Rape Crisis Center, we started meeting other girls on campus who had been victims of date rape, who had been sexually assaulted just walking across campus. You know, sexual assault isn't always just rape. It could be, you know, words that boys are using, you know, making them feel bad about themselves, about their bodies, their images. And so as I continued to volunteer the next couple of years, some of my own friends came out and told me about experiences that they had on campus.
Wow. You said something really powerful, that the experiences encompassed words as well as physical assault or abuse. And I think that's such an important aspect that sometimes we forget when it comes to issues of domestic violence, is that it's not just physical violence. So just so everyone is on the same page, could you define domestic violence?
Sure. So the textbook definition of domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behaviors that perpetrators use in order to exert power and control over another individual. So that could be in the form of physical violence, so hitting or punching. It could also be in the form of emotional abuse, making them feel bad about who they are, psychological abuse. So basically using behaviors that control the way that women think about themselves or their roles as wives or mothers or sisters. In our organization, the Asian Pacific Islander Domestic Violence Resource Project, or DVRP for short, we actually see more cases of emotional and psychological abuse than we do physical.
Wow. So tell me more about the Domestic Violence Resource Project, what work you do and what the mission of the organization is.
So DVRP's mission is to address, prevent, and end domestic violence and sexual assault within Asian Pacific Islander communities while empowering survivors to rebuild their lives after abuse. So we provide direct social services that are culturally and linguistically specific to Asian and Pacific Islanders. So most of our clients are immigrants and limited English proficient, primarily from lower income communities. And we also do a lot of prevention and training activities because we believe that domestic violence isn't going to end just by addressing it and providing those services. Those services are obviously very important, but we also have to change the way that we think in society.
Definitely. And at the beginning of the interview, you mentioned that you had certain preconceived notions that were pushed on you growing up about what women should be like and how they should interact. What was your experience as a child and within your own family as far as different roles and what you just saw going on every day?
Sure. So I'm a first generation immigrant. And so that was definitely a very interesting experience growing up and trying to assimilate into American culture. So some of the beliefs that I challenged when I was growing up were things like, well, you're a woman, so you're not as strong as your brother. You can't lift that piece of furniture. Or,
Yeah,
things like
interesting.
you can't, be a director or a CEO because those jobs are for men.
Oh.
Or, you can't, necessarily talk back or raise your voice or have an opinion because Asian women are supposed to just accept what, the men in their household say. Or we're supposed to, cook and clean and take care of the kids while the men go out and make money.
And being Asian American myself, an Indian American, I can definitely relate to a lot of what you're saying. As far as the domestic violence work that you do, was that something that was openly talked about or something that was not talked about? How was that handled within your community?
So I grew up, I'm a native New Yorker, very proud New Yorker, and I grew up primarily in an immigrant community. It was mostly Indian and Chinese when we moved in, and now it's more Chinese and Korean. And so there was actually a lot of violence in my community, and it wasn't so much the gang violence or robberies or things like that, but it was more of the family violence within the households. So, spouses hitting each other, children who were being abused because parents believe that the proper way to teach a child is to physically discipline them or make them feel bad or tell them that they weren't good enough. So a lot of emotional child abuse.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really talked about. And then also in my own extended family, there were cases of domestic violence. And the reason I say domestic violence is not so much that it wasn't really intimate partner violence because it wasn't between romantic partners. But we and my organization, and I believe that domestic violence is such a broad topic within Asian Pacific Islander communities because family is so central to the work that we do. So in my own family, it was a lot of financial abuse, it was a lot of emotional abuse. It wasn't so much the physical, but that still had a huge impact. And I know that in my best friends' families growing up, we would go to school, and even in elementary school, we would share stories that would be horrific right now. I mean, I had friends talking about how they had to suffer through emotional abuse because they got a 99 out of 100 on an exam, and a 99 wasn't good enough. Or they would go home, being sent home with a note from the teacher because they were talking in class, and knowing that what they had to go home to was their father beating them that night.
That's horrible. Given that context, how does that shape the work that you do now?
I think that, again, just going back to something that I said earlier, that I really think it's about the way that we believe our roles are in society and our cultures, and even how women are portrayed in the media, right? And whether we accept that, a lot of articles that you read about domestic violence, the words domestic violence aren't even used. It's called a homicide. It's like, oh, the partner killed, his or her wife. But they don't really actually call it out. And so the work that I personally do a lot of is really talking about the issue, raising awareness, doing a lot of advocacy work with, service providers, government officials, to local communities, because I really believe that in the way to end domestic violence in our lifetime is to change the mindset of how we think.
You have done such an amazing job of harnessing a really difficult experience just as far as what you saw growing up at home and went through yourself to make an impact now and create awareness in this social movement. Can you tell us what the favorite part of your job is?
Sure. So I love the part of my job where I get to work with the most marginalized communities. So as an organization, our focus is providing services to Asian and Pacific Islanders, although we, do serve anyone who walks in through our doors who needs services. But the best part of that is working with the women who really don't have anyone else to turn to. Most of the women that we work with are limited English proficient, meaning that when they go to a mainstream domestic violence organization, people, are unable to understand their language. Wow. Or our clients tell us that they feel as though, the person on the other side doesn't really understand culturally where they're coming from. Sure. I mean, we're working with women who are low income, who don't necessarily want their partners deported because that's their sole source of money, for themselves and their kids, or women who are immigrants and isolated because their close friends and family are back home in an Asian country, and they really don't have a way of reaching out and getting that support from their peers.
Well, definitely just in conversation with you, Jessica, I know that you really are working with other people to make a change for the better, and I am just so grateful to people like you for the work that you do.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fishnet tights, a little black dress, red pumps, shorts so short that when she sits down, her thighs thump. They thump, they thump, they thump. They jump, they flip, they yearn to be free, and never are they allowed to be seen because to a woman who was told all her life to take a seat, shut up, and close her knees, thighs to her are ever so obscene. Because forever will they be subjected to torture by society. Forever will they be hidden and seen as forbidden. A miniskirt, fitted tank top, and platform shoes, the anorexic woman now sings the blues. For her, thumping is gone. Because all her life, she'd been told her thighs were disgusting, that it was all her fault that the men were lusting. It thumps, it thumps, it thumps. Her heart thumps. Because she pops hydroxycut pills. 3 times a day, every meal she weeps. Because she doesn't eat and she no longer sleeps, so she wears fishnet tights, a little black dress, and red pumps. The tights are the dusty web over her soul of womanhood. The little black dress is the death that now covers the spot where her appetite used to be. And the red pumps are her outlet, her way of being free. They thump, they thump, they thump. Inside, she is a curvaceous, beautiful woman, but outside, she's thin. She's miserable because she no longer thumps. Fishnet tights, a little black dress, red pumps. So when she stopped listening to society, she started eating again. And her thighs began to thump again, and she embraced herself and gained the ultimate wealth, self-confidence. They thump, they thump, they thump. And so she dares to stand up in shorts so short that they cause her thighs to thump, thump, thump. So when she flips through that magazine, she no longer dreams of being thumped-less because she knows those women's sorrows. They yearn for freedom and the promise of a better tomorrow. A day where the thump is not disrespected or neglected with low-carb diets. A day in which thighs built for comfort do not have to be hidden. So she wears her fishnet tights, little black dresses, red pumps, mini skirts, fitted tank tops and platform shoes, and shorts so short that they cause her voluptuous thighs to thump, thump, thump. Because she's plump and she's proud and her spirit sings so loud. Thump, thump, thump.
Welcome to Free to Be You. I am your host, Mary David, and we are talking about issues that relate to empowering women and girls. With us today, we have a really well-known expert in the field in a number of different ways, and her name is Sarah Elizabeth Hillware. Sarah is a health advocate for women and girls, nonprofit founder and director, TEDx speaker, philanthropist, and future doctor. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, Mary. I'm excited.
Me too. You have accomplished so much at such a young age. So I'm curious to know what has, if there has been a single catalyst that catapulted you into the arena of girls' health education, or how you really got involved.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think it's a great place to start. So I actually moved to Washington, D.C. in 2005, and I moved here not by choice, but because my family and I were fleeing from a domestic violence situation. So my family and I had lived in Louisiana before that, so prior to moving to D.C., and my stepfather, he was pretty abusive. He had suffered from PTSD. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he self-medicated via drinking and also prescription medication. And so he, became verbally abusive. There were a few very violent and dangerous episodes with he and my mother. And one night, after many times my mom trying to leave, we finally said enough is enough. And she got us up in the middle of the night. I had two younger siblings, so two younger siblings and I at the middle of the night, and we fled to D.C. Domestic violence is a subject all on its own. However, during the time that I was living in that situation, in that environment, I developed very low self-esteem. I was very unhealthy. I was overweight. So I really think that by focusing on, my self-esteem, it really helped me to develop healthy habits. And my mom was really great at supporting me, during my transition. And so I went from, I believe I was about age 11 when I was at my heaviest. I was about 160, 165 at a very young age. And then 2 years later, or maybe even less than that, I had dropped down to 128 pounds. So I was in normal BMI range.
That's great.
Yeah, and it was wonderful. I blossomed. I, became active in sports, and I was a better student, and I was a better person all around. And I just really felt as if girls' health education, being able to focus on one's inner peace and one's inner body is really the key to making sure that our girls, are able to blossom in all aspects of life.
Wow, what a powerful story and powerful experience. I'm so glad that you've harnessed that to really make a change in the world in so many ways. Your newest venture would be Girls' Health Education, or maybe not your newest venture. You have so many, it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, well, so Girls' Health Ed is the name of my nonprofit that I started last year. And since then, it's really grown. And the focus is that what we do, we mentor girls from ages 8 through 17, and we actually go into schools and community centers and we teach health education classes. So
great.
A lot of people, when they think about health education, think about, only nutrition, only fitness, but it's really about the whole person. It's about inside and out wellness. So we also talk about body image, and we talk about reproductive health, and we talk about personal care. And what it really does is it helps the girls to come out of their shell, and it really helps them to get to know themselves. Because once you are intimately familiar with your own body and your own needs, then you can then focus on your other goals in life. And we actually do a survey. We ask the girls, what their goals are, what their aspirations are at the beginning of the class, and then at the end of the class, girls go from saying, hey, well, I don't really know what I want to do to, I want to be a dancer, or I want to be a pediatrician, or I want to be a teacher. And, they're just really blossoming. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, all of our volunteers are women, and they're young women professionals who are role models. And, giving these girls role models and having these girls look at someone who's confident and who is sure of themselves really has a powerful effect.
Wow, and you have just been such a powerful influence on them, I'm sure, and helping them open up on these different issues. What is it like being back in the school setting after, so many years in the elementary and middle school setting?
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I just see myself in all of these girls. I see girls who are insecure. I see girls who are having to deal with bullies. I see girls who don't have the most stable home situations. I see girls who are underweight. I suffer from eating disorders as well during my transition. I see girls who are overweight. And, so I see myself in these girls, and I see you know, that they can be whoever they want to be. And, you know, I really feel like that age range, ages 8 through 17, that's where people are forming not only their health habits, but they're forming who they're going to be. So I just see this huge window of opportunity. And I mean, overall, I mean, it's just a lot of fun. These girls, they're so lively, and they're like, you know, shooting their hands up. Oh, I know the answer, you know, and like, it's like my favorite part. Yeah, exactly.
So as far as bullying and some of these other issues that you've encountered, what do you say when you come across a child who just doesn't have a good support network, those friends around them to lift them up?
Right. Well, you know, I think in those situations where you have girls who don't really have, you know, they don't have the home support, they don't have the friends at school, you know, a lot of times they lean on their teachers and their mentors. Yeah. And that's why I think it's so important to have programs like this where you have mentors, you know, and we also get the teachers involved, we get the administration involved, we get the community involved, we partner with other organizations, and we give them a network. So if they don't already have it, you know, we make sure that they are given that network of support.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know you're continuing to expand in your outreach, so I hear there's a mobile app that you're launching.
Yes, so that is separate from Girls Health Ed. There is a mobile app that I'm hoping to launch along with 2 other partners this spring, and it's called She Wins.
Oh, wow. Tell us about that.
She Wins, it stands for Simple Health Education. And then there's a dash in the middle, Women's Information Network System. And what it is, it targets young college women, so different age range, from ages 17 through 25. And what it does is it gives them a network, and it gives them both a peer network and a network of healthcare providers. So it's going to have a mobile app portion, and we're thinking about also having a website portion. So it's going to focus on a few key areas. So body image, you know, healthy lifestyle, healthy relationships, and also reproductive health.
Wow.
So like, for example, I'll give you an example of how the app can be useful. Let's say that I'm on birth control, and I'm a young woman, and I'm 25. Okay. And I would like to know what the side effects are of an IUD, or, you know, which is an intrauterine device for those of you who don't know. I can go on the app, and I can see what my peers have said about it who are in my age group. See what they've had, you know, experience, you know, what their experiences are, have been with it. And then I can also go to the other portion of the app, which can, you know, actually garner advice from MDs, PhDs, you know, et cetera, on the topic. And then they can actually list the scientific side effects of the app, and they can, or I'm sorry, of the IUD, you know, so you have both sides. So you have the peer, and then you also have the healthcare, you know, opinion. So, you know, I feel like it's something that's really needed, you know, because a lot of women are, you know, going to see their doctor, and, you know, they're not sure what questions to ask. They're not sure, you know, even what direction to go in. So this is a preliminary step, and sometimes it can even prevent people from having to go to the doctor to obtain advice. You know, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to, you know, have a network where young women can go and they can have their questions answered, and they can, you know, get general information that's credible.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really bringing together your medical education along with your personal experiences, and I love how you are distinguishing the services that you're providing for older women from young girls, but also it shows to me, it seems like that a lot of these issues transcend as far as beauty and personal image and weight and just different health concerns. And as women, there are just so many that we face, and given your background and my background with pageants, that's something else that I'm sure you've come across a lot. Oh, yeah. So as America's Miss DC, do you think those experiences, how have they shaped the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. A lot of people think that having been America's Miss DC 2012, that it conflicts with a lot of the things that you know, I advocate for. And in fact, I actually think that the two of them can work in harmony. So through pageants, I actually have met a lot of women who they're smart, they're capable, and on top of that, gorgeous and confident in themselves. And I think that, you know, being on stage and, you know, having to get to know yourself to such a deep level, because interview and, you know, being able to speak on something that you're passionate about is a huge part of pageantry. So just having met so many amazing women who are empowered, you know, from being involved in pageants has really helped me, you know, to kind of bridge the gap. So, you know, pageantry isn't all about, you know, a lot of people think, oh my God, all these women have like, you know, fake this and fake that, and you know, they're you know, representing an image that isn't real. But actually, a lot of the women that I've met are very real, and they're actually representing who they are. And I think, you know, your show is called Free to Be You, and you know, that's what I would like to tell these girls, and that's what I'd like to share with them, is that you can be yourself and be your best self and be amazing. So that's what pageantry has taught me.
I love that, and I love how you bring it together, because so many people, like you said, do find it confusing or conflicting to talk about things like self-esteem and have a background in pageantry and have an education and be so well-spoken, and they really do go together. Gloria Steinem put it best, I think, at the National Press Club when she said that if we were talking about men and a different pageant that they did, that you wouldn't have these issues in the same way, where the Miss America organization, for example, is the largest scholarship fund for women.
Yeah, yeah.
So
exactly.
I'm privileged to know you and to have met you through pageants.
Likewise.
Well, thank you, Sarah. And we are so grateful that you've shared your thoughts with us and helped us hopefully be inspired. I know I am, to be more free and to empower other people with that message.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks for having me.